Last hour, we were talking to a professor from George Mason, and he was talking about, how bad the education is. And I was talking a little bit about the brainwashing that is going on and the activization of at least 10% of our college students that just want to be liberal activists. And who is doing that on the other side? Who is activating today's youth to be able to get them to defend the Constitution and conservative principles? The answer is sitting in my studio right now. Ben Shapiro. How you doing, Ben?
Hey, doing well. How are you?
Good. I know you had a great time in Connecticut yesterday. 100 security officers to protect your speech and 0 protesters.
Yeah, that's always how it goes. And you always think, why do we need these security officers? And then half the time there's a riot. So,
yeah, right. Yeah.
But it was nice. I mean, it was 500 students who showed up. They closed it to the general public, which is too bad. They should have allowed another 500-600 people in because they had another 700 reservations is what I heard. But in any case, it was a really nice event. Everybody enjoyed.
Do you meet anybody on the left that is, because I have, people who are hard on the left who say, I'm really concerned about what's happening on college campuses?
I think that's a growing concern for a lot of people on the left. I mean, I think anybody who's an honest person on the left has to look at the way that they're cracking down on free speech and think to themselves, this is a problem, and it could reverse itself and bite us.
Yeah.
This is not a single-edged blade.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a serious problem that they're allowing the heckler's veto to prevail here, that somebody from the community will threaten something and suddenly 100 officers are necessary and we ban everyone from the general public. They've now done this at Northwestern. They did this at UC Berkeley. They just ban people from coming in entirely from the outside community. Whereas, like last week, Anita Hill spoke at UConn and it was completely open to the public. They barely needed security. It was totally fine.
All right. So you're going to join us today for a few minutes on the television show. We're going to do some stuff that for subscribers only to The Blaze. And we're going to talk about the future of the conservative movement and what our principles are and how we navigate from here. But I want to talk to you about kind of the news of the day and get your point of view on 2 days ago. Ron Johnson comes out and he said, we have a source that says there was a secret society meetings that were going on. And we know we have this text message and something didn't feel right. I want everything released because if that is happening, but I also said, I think it was yesterday, that kind of sounds a little like McCarthy saying, I've got the names of 250 people right in my pocket. If you don't have it, you're going to destroy everything. And here's what we found out yesterday about what that memo or that text message actually said.
In the single message, again, the single text message sent the day after Trump was elected was from senior FBI lawyer Lisa Page to Peter Strzok, the top counterintelligence officer at the FBI and a key figure in the Bureau's past investigations into Trump and Clinton. Here's the quote. Are you even going to give out your calendars? Page asks Strzok. Seems kind of depressing. Maybe it should just be the first meeting of the secret society.
Ben, that's not a secret society.
No. I mean, the way all Republicans were talking it up yesterday was like this was going to be the view from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where he looks down and there's just a bunch of people chanting, and there's a guy tearing a guy's heart out and setting it on fire. And what it actually ends up being is just a bunch of nerds who sit around and have beer and talk about work. But I really... This is my big problem, is no one is waiting for all the evidence to come out before jumping to their narrative conclusion. So you have people on the left, and their narrative conclusion is Donald Trump definitely colluded with Russia, and the FBI is in the midst of one of the great investigations of our time that is going to uncover the real source of Donald Trump's victory, and any questions that are asked about that are completely out of line. And then on the right, you have this counter-narrative that the FBI is thoroughly corrupt. It has been completely run through with people on the left who don't care about the truth and are simply out to get President Trump. And my tendency is to think that there's a lot of in-between there, and it's probably somewhere in the in-between, meaning that there are probably people like Strzok and Page who don't like Trump. We don't really know the impact that they've had on this particular investigation. One of the texts that everyone seems to be ignoring on the right is the text from Strzok to Page saying, I don't want to join the Mueller investigation because it's going nowhere.
Right?
Yeah. There's no there, right?
Yeah, but the right is now starting to use that and say, look, even this guy said there's no there. Well, you can't have it both ways.
Right. And
you can't say he's an evil guy trying to take him down. Oh, and he didn't want to join.
None of it makes any sense. And all of these propositions can be true. It can be true that the FBI was politicized by the Obama administration, most clearly in the Hillary Clinton investigation.
Yes.
There's no question that the FBI was political in that investigation. It's also true there are bad apples inside the FBI. It can also be true that the investigation right now is doing what it's supposed to do. It can also be true that that investigation has gone beyond its original bounds and is now moving into obstruction, which seems to me a lot more of a stretch. Right? All these things can be true at once, but people are not waiting for all the evidence to come out before they jump to whatever facts support the conclusion that they want. Either the FBI is thoroughly corrupt or the FBI is thoroughly pristine.
And to find the real conclusion here, doesn't the theater hurt? this idea that everyone comes out and screams about how we know we have a secret society and we know Russia is colluded with Trump. And doesn't that really hurt the search for the actual truth?
It doesn't. One of the biggest problems that I have here is that there is information that could easily be declassified and is not being declassified. President Trump is the president of the United States. He is the chief executive. That means that he actually gets to declassify, for example, the FISA application on Carter Page. One of the big complaints from people on the right, I think quite possible this is true, is that the FISA application on Carter Page was based on the Steele dossier, the Fusion GPS dossier that was funded by the Democrats and was essentially based on Russian disinformation. Okay, if that's the case, then why not just release the application, right? The FISA application, Trump can do that. He can do that like right now. And I've been told by people, well, he doesn't want to look like he's politicizing the investigation. How does he not look like he's politicizing the investigation? I mean, the guy tweets about Jeff Sessions and Andrew McCabe and James Comey every 5 minutes. So all I want, just as an American, all I want is more information and less conjecture, because all I'm getting is conjecture and posturing. And now you've got the Democrats who are putting out their own memos. So now we have a memo fight. We have these secondhand memos that are not even based on the classified intel fighting with each other. It's all stupidity to me. I don't understand.
Yeah, the classified memos, even the people who are writing memos about them haven't seen the classified memos.
Right, and this is what the DOJ says, right? The DOJ, and maybe if that's not true, then wouldn't you expect Devin Nunes to say, no, I have seen the classified material, and my memo is based on that classified material. But the DOJ emailed Devin Nunes, sent him a letter yesterday, and they said, listen, don't release that classified memo because, number one, it compromises national security, but number two, you actually haven't seen the underlying classified materials you're talking about. So why are we reading a memo not based on the classified materials that are actually at issue, especially when a lot of those classified materials could become declassified by the president? All this says to me, here's where I actually think this is going based on the evidence that's on the table. Where I think this is going is I think Robert Mueller is going to try and establish a pattern of obstruction against President Trump. He's going to suggest that President Trump was trying to fire James Comey and go after his own DOJ and go after Andrew McCabe in order to stop an investigation into him, because whether or not Trump is innocent, he thinks he's innocent, and therefore he was trying to, quote unquote, obstruct the investigation. This is the problem with obstruction as a charge. There doesn't actually have to be an underlying crime in order for you to obstruct, right? If you're obstructing an investigation, then it doesn't matter whether there's actually underlying anything that went bad. The problem is, I think we're going to get the worst case scenario, because I've become such a pessimist that we always get the worst case scenario. Yes. The worst case scenario here is that there is no actual legal obstruction, right? Because the actual statutes on obstruction do not cover President Trump firing James Comey or even saying to Andrew McCabe, who'd you vote for? Obstruction is a legal charge. As a lawyer, these charges in the U.S. Code do not apply to what President Trump has done. Doesn't matter. The left seizes on Mueller's suggestion that there has been some sort of informal obstruction.
Yes.
And then they launch an impeachment push against President Trump. And then Republicans are forced into the position of having to defend some of the stupid and, I think, dismal things that Trump has done, from firing Comey, which I think was dumb, to demanding a loyalty oath, all these sorts of things that are not illegal but are not smart. And so we're sitting around defending those. And then the Democrats are browbeating us and saying they need impeachment. It ends up being a battle over bad behavior as opposed to a battle over criminality. And the left will charge that the right is fine with criminality, and the right will say that the left is trying to use the law in the wrong ways. And both will be half right and both will be half wrong. It'll just be awful. It'll be awful all the way around.
So that's good.
That's optimism.
The good news is, I honestly don't think the impeachment drive will go anywhere, and I think that people will survive. And I don't think people care that much about this, other than the die-hard political fanatics on the right who think that Trump is absolutely innocent of everything and has never done anything wrong, and people on the left who think that Trump is absolutely guilty of everything and is going to be impeached. They're waiting for the Deus Ex Machina to come in and just remove Trump from office, which is not happening.
So I think we're in the same area. I talked about it a few weeks ago and said I don't think anything's going to happen with the Trump investigation. But sadly, what I think is going to happen is we are going to miss the mark on Russia. This whole investigation should be about
We haven't mentioned that in 15 minutes.
I know. This is not about... Look, I think that Hillary Clinton was absolutely corrupt, and the FBI has mountains of evidence of lots of people in our government in Washington that were corrupt with Uranium One. Why haven't we seen any of that evidence? Now, whether she was personally corrupt, sure looks like it, but I don't know. When it comes to Donald Trump, I don't like the meeting in Trump Tower, et cetera, but I don't know if there's any crime there that has been committed. I do know this. The FBI has known things about Russia, and they have not followed through. Why? Is there someone that is saying, kind of like what's his name that went in and took the documents out of the Library of Congress
Sandy Berger.
Yeah, the National Archives. Both sides were kind of like, no, that's pretty okay. I'm pretty okay with that because both sides are dirty with Russia. We need to know, can we trust our Justice Department? Yes or no? Can we trust them to do independent investigations? And the second thing is, how bad are things with Russia? Mm-hmm. How bad is the influence and the bribery and the scandals with Russia? And let the chips fall where they may. I don't think that's going to happen.
I agree with a lot of this, and I also don't think that it's going to happen. I think that everyone, if you're on the side of what the FBI is doing right now, then you are going to stand up for the FBI no matter what. If you don't like what the FBI is doing right now, then you're going to suggest that they're a nefarious institution in the pay of the opposite side.
How do either of these not accomplish the goals of Vladimir Putin of destroying our republic?
Well, I think that Putin was very smart. He realized that all he had to do was drop, a hint of conspiratorialism into American politics, and everybody would jump on it with both feet. And he was right. It's worked. We're at each other's throats over, essentially, I'm not sure there's much there. And I think that's particularly true. If you look in another area where Russia was supposedly nefarious, I really don't think that Russian bots were manipulating people's information whole during the last election cycle. I think that people are jumping on that because they find it politically useful. So Russia interfered in the election, but I think that what they've done even more, to more success even, is they've allowed that impression that they interfered in the last election cycle to now create the basis on which everything else moves. So, for example, the release of the memo hashtag that was trending last week. Suddenly, Dianne Feinstein and Adam Schiff are suggesting the reason that it's trending is because of Russian bots. And they're calling on Facebook and Twitter to actually crack down on these non-existent Russian bots that were supposedly sending this trending. Daily Beast did a report yesterday, and they said it wasn't Russian bots. That was just a bunch of Republicans who are hashtagging release the memo. The point that Dianne Feinstein and Schiff are doing is what they are doing is they want Facebook and Twitter to crack down on right-wing media outlets, claiming that it's a way of cracking down on fake news. So they're using the Russian bot stuff and they're using the Russia stuff as a proxy for getting to a political goal they want to get to. I swear, every day I wake up and I think, I'm cynical enough about politics today. And then by that night, I'm thinking, my God, I need to be twice as cynical as I was this morning because it just doesn't work.